Hey. Good morning, good morning, good morning, my brothers and sisters. Good morning, and welcome to another Good Morning Grief devotional. It's your boy, Pastor Corey Allen Duncan Sr. So grateful and thankful to have this time and this opportunity to come to you on today to lead you in a very special way and yet another grief devotion. This is the daily grief devotion that is strategically designed to help you to navigate through your grief one day at a time. What is grief? I'm so glad you asked. Grief, my brothers and sisters, it is the natural and normal response to loss, change, and transition that results in the expressions of feelings and emotions. Grief is what you feel on the inside. Mourning is what you express out. Therefore, we don't suppress it, but we express it. We don't ignore it, but we explore it. We don't conceal it, but we reveal it. We don't lock it up, but we let it out. And that's why we shout good morning, because morning is a good thing. And I'm so glad that you're here on today as we navigate through another grief devotion. As many of you know, that the primary focus is grief dealing with death, right? But I want you to know that grief and mourning extends beyond death. It deals with any loss, change, and transition. So I'm so glad that you are here on today. Don't know what loss, change, or transition you're currently navigating through, but thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey and on the team to help you to become a better you. So God bless you. Look, if this is a blessing to you, it's going to be a blessing to somebody else. Make sure you like and share, tag somebody in this post, let them know that every single day we are committed to helping you to navigate through your grief journey. We in this thing, right? And so come on and take part and be a part of what God is doing as we bring some awareness, some education, and hopefully some action to the subject of grief and mourning. Today is day 17. We're going to talk about it's okay to ask why. It's great to ask why me. It's okay to ask why me. It's all right. It's okay to ask why me. Have y'all ever asked yourself that question as you navigated through what you're going through, be it the death of a loved one or the betrayal of a friendship or whatever the situation or circumstance may be, the layoff or whatever loss, whatever you lost, whatever's changed, whatever transition you got to navigate through? Have you ever asked the question, why me? Let's talk about it real quick, y'all. Life isn't fair. Life isn't fair. While everyone suffers loss, some people seem to be dealt worse cards than others. Can we just get that out the way? That life ain't fair. And I know that we want it to be fair. I know that we wanted everything to line up and we want everything to make sense. But y'all, life is not fair. Even when it comes to walking with Christ, and we think that everything's going to be perfect, right? And everything is going to be good and great. And the reality is, life is not, it's not fair, right? It's not fair. And while everyone suffers loss, because we all do, some people seem to be dealt worse cards than others. We're all dealt a hand in life, right? If you've ever played any type of card game, Uno, spades, whatever the case may be, we've all been dealt a bad hand, right? We've all been dealt a bad hand that was absolutely terrible. We like, man, what am I supposed to do with it? I ain't got no books, right? They ask you how many you got, one in a possible, right? Or Uno, you look at your hand like, oh, this is terrible, right? Because some of us are dealt a worse hand than others. That's the reality of the situation. While everybody suffers loss, some people seem to be dealt worse cards than others. And that's not to minimize your situation or to minimize your hand, but we begin to recognize that everybody is dealt a hand, and sometimes some people's hands or cards are worse than others. So if I feel I've gotten the short end of the stick in some way, right, it's okay for me to ask, why me? Why me? It's okay. Some of us, we think we can't ask that question. Some of us, people tell you, don't ask. Do. That's part of the process. That's part of the grieving process, to ask questions, to explore. I don't want to ignore. I want to explore, right? I don't. I want to. I got questions, right, that I want to ask, right? So why me? Any feelings of injustice I might have or are a normal part of my grief and my search for meaning. You see that? Any feelings of injustice that you might have, that's a normal part of your grief journey. It's a normal part of your experience. It's a normal part of what you're dealing with and going through. And this is where I say don't suppress, but address and express, right? There's certain things, especially growing up, especially if you grew up in a churchy religious household, people was like, don't ask questions, don't ask why. People tell us things that are not accurate, that are not biblically accurate, and that are just not healthy as it relates to mental and emotional, health. We say things or we adopt mindsets or ideologies that don't serve us well, right? And so one of the things that we can ask is like, why me, right? Any feelings of injustice I might have are a normal part of my grief and my search for meaning. Grievers will sometimes acknowledge that even though they've suffered a terrible loss, there are others who have it worse than them. This is always true, but it doesn't take away my need to grieve my unique loss. You can ask why me and why you searching that. Like I said, there are other people who may have a worse hand than you, right? And while this is true, it still doesn't take away your need to grieve your situation. Some of us will look at something and we'll say, well, I lost a child. But then we'll see somebody that maybe lost three children in a fire or car accident. So we'll say, well, I ain't got no business crying. They done lost three children. No, that doesn't cancel out your grief. That doesn't cancel out what you feel, right? If your situation seems minimal to other people or even to you, that doesn't cancel out what you feel regarding it. That doesn't squash it. That doesn't extinguish the pain and the hurt that you feel, right? That other people, they might have a worse hand. They may have it far off worse than you. They may be dealing with a lot. But guess what? Even though you may reduce yours and say I'm dealing with a little, no, that little is a lot too, right? It's not going to cancel out that pain. It doesn't extinguish or negate what you're going through, and you still have a right to feel what you feel. And so we can ask the why me, right? Now this is the thing. I always say this. You can what do I say? I always articulate it in a certain way. You can ask why, but God may not always reply, right? We got questions that go unanswered all the time. We ask like, why me? Or why did I have to go through this? Why did I have to lose a child? Why did I have to lose it? Why did I have to? And I tell people all the time, and I mean I can't answer the question, right? And I know that there are some things that we can ask why, but we may not always get a reply, right? Two things that I always say. First of all, there's sin and there's evil in this world, right? And sometimes number one, there's sin and there's evil in the world, um, and also sometimes good things happen to bad people, right? The Bible says it rains on the just as well as the unjust. Us, uh, um, being a child of God doesn't exempt us from trouble. It doesn't exempt us from problems or pain or any type of thing. It doesn't exempt us, necessarily from sickness. And, we still got to endure and go through certain things. And so that's first and foremost, right? Knowing that we're not exempt from pain, problems, death. We're not exempt from trials, troubles, tribulations, issue. We're not exempt, right? Jesus beat beyond the recognition of a man, hung on the cross, crucified, all of this stuff, man. We're not exempt. We're not exempt, number one. And sometimes good things happen to bad people. The other thing is, you got sin, you got evil, you got all this stuff in the world. And we can ask why, but we might not always get a reply, right? We may not always get a reply. And there's some scriptures in the Bible that kind of help me to navigate through this. Isaiah says, his thoughts are not your thoughts, his ways are not your ways. As high as the heaven is from the earth are his thoughts from ours, right? So I want to always understand the mind of God or what he allows, why he allows what he allows. I won't understand it. For me to try to comprehend it is really incomprehensible. Deuteronomy 29:29 talks about how the secret things belong to the Lord. There's some things that I won't be able to know. I won't be able to comprehend. In Ecclesiastes, it talks about we don't even know how the bones of a baby are formed in the womb of a mother, right? How could we possibly know the mind of God? Well, I can't even explain that. How can I explain the things that happen in my life if I can't even explain that? How I can't explain how the bones of a baby are formed in the womb of a mother. I can't explain how she received the seed of a man, and then all of a sudden in 9 months you got vertebrae and hearts and lungs and brains forming and all of this stuff. I can't explain that. How could I possibly explain, make the connections, make the dots, the connect the dots, or understand the things that happen in life? Job went through a lot, right? And Job went through a lot. And he asked God why. I told you, man, you can ask why, you may not get a reply. He asked God why for six chapters in the book of Job. God just asked him questions. Like, yeah, you got questions for me. I got some questions from you. Where's snow stored at? And why does this happen? Well, he's just started asking Job all these questions. Job was like, all right, I'm gonna be quiet because I don't know. Right? We don't know. Trying to understand the mind of God is incomprehensible, right? And so this is what I do know. I do know that, he lets us know some things in his word of God, no matter what you're going through. I do know Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, that he says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. I do know that he says in Romans 8:28, and all things work together for the good of those that love God, to those that are the called according to his purpose. I do know Psalms 34 and 18. He says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit, right? I do know that he said he would never leave us, he would never forsake us. I do know he said, Lo, I'm with you always, even until the end of the world. I do know he says in John 16 and 33, in this world you're going to have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. I do know he tells us, I think in Romans 14, mourn with those who mourn, right? So I do know that even the things I don't know and I can't understand and I can't comprehend, I do know that God is with me. I do know that God hasn't left me. I do know that God is walking with me through it, right? I do know that if I try to lean to my own understanding, I won't be able to understand it, but I just acknowledge him and he'll direct my path. I do know that he'll comfort me. I do know that he'll keep me. I do know that, he'll help me navigate through it. And the same thing applies to you. You can ask why. You might not always get a reply, right? But you got to know and understand that God is with you, that God is sovereign, right? And we trust him in the midst of everything that we navigate through. That's what I do know, right? And so understanding that grievers will sometimes acknowledge that even though they've suffered a terrible loss, there are others who have it worse than them. This is always true, but it doesn't take away my need to grieve and mourn my unique loss. Grieve and mourn your unique loss. Don't allow anybody to minimize your situation. Don't look at somebody else's situation and shrink yours down. No, you still feel what you feel. You still have to grieve and mourn the situation that you're going through. Don't let anybody minimize what you're going through. Check this out. Here's the final reflection. Asking, why me, is often a normal and natural part of the unfolding of my grief. Asking why me, that's a natural and normal part of the unfolding of your grief. Beloved, I need y'all to continue to feel, continue to reveal, so that you can continue to heal on your grief journey. If you got questions today is day 17. Today is day 17, and we're talking about it's okay to ask why me. If you got questions, I'll take them at this time. Questions, nothing, ain't nothing came through the chat. Ba, 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 ba. Nothing came through the chat. Is the chat not working? Hold on one second. If y'all have anything that y'all have posted up until now, it did not come through. So something was going on with the chat. So anything that y'all have posted, it did not come through. So if you posted a question, you have to repost the question. I didn't see the chat wasn't chatting, right? The chat wasn't chatting. So anything that you posted up until now, it didn't come through. So if you do have a question, you can drop it at this time. If you got a question, you got a comment, that you want to share, you can drop it at this time. I appreciate y'all coming by. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate navigating through this grief devotion. Anything at all. Ain't nothing coming through. Somebody type something. Let me know if it's working at all. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Let me see something. Because I know I can get, let me see. Through the technical difficult. Oh, yeah. Y'all all on here for the, so I done ran the YouTube. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Better preach. I had to grieve not being able to have kids. Okay, hold on one second. I don't know why it's not showing. I had to run the YouTube. Peter said I had to grieve not being able. Hold on. And it's a delay, so I hear myself in a delay. I had to grieve not being able to have kids. I used to ask why me because I've been a great stepmother and mother figure to nieces and nephews. Instead of asking why, I started asking God to show me what I needed to get out of the denial of childbearing. How could I use the denial to grow? Wow. Thank you, Pilar, for sharing that. Thank you, Pilar, for sharing that. And that is so when you start talking about grief, and I thank you so much for sharing that. When you start talking about grief and mourning, that's what I'm talking about, right? Is any loss, change, or transition. So it's like, how do I navigate through that? If that's the reality of my life, if that's what I'm navigating through, if that's what I'm dealing with, right? Because you're going to ask that question, like, why me? And I love what you said. So you said, I've been a great stepmother and mother figure to nieces and nephews. Instead of asking why, I started asking God to show me what I needed to get out of the denial of childbearing. How could you use the denial to grow? How could I use the denial to grow? And that's so very important, right? Because we're all dealt this hand. We're all dealt this hand in life. And a lot of times it seems unfair. Like we started out the devotion, life is unfair, right? And I'm thinking about the man who was born blind, and Jesus said, well, they said, Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents? And he said, neither. This was done for the glory of God. And at the end of the day, whatever it is you're going through, it's God. How do you want to use this for your glory? It's something I got to deal with, something I got to grapple with, something I got to wrestle with. But ultimately, I give this to you. That's where trusting in the Lord with all of your heart, leaning not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledging Him and letting Him direct your path. Just it comes into play, right? And whether that's losing a child or not being able to bear a child, right? And there's so many different life situations and circumstances. I'm thinking of just so many different things that people have dealt with or going through, or burdens that they have to bear that just breaks my heart and it seems unfair. And just seeking God through it all, right? Which is so very important. So very important. Some people allow those things, they turn their back on God. And they don't want to be bothered with God, right? But it's even putting that at the feet of Him, and even navigating through it, grieving. So you feel, you reveal, you heal as it relates to that situation. You feel, you reveal, you heal, and you continue to do that because as you go through life, you may have different feelings regarding it. You may feel one way now, you may feel another way 5 years from now. So it's a burden that you continue to bear, that you continue to lay before God as you navigate through this thing called life. Thank you so much for sharing that. See, I would have never seen it had I not ran over here to YouTube. Good message, Pastor. I've had people show jealousy towards me because I've been blessed, which at times made me feel guilty. I hear you, Michael. Absolutely, that happens, right? People always assume, judge, that denials from God is punishment, and I hate that people think that way. Absolutely. Yeah, they think a lot of times they think, yeah, denial is punishment, and definitely not the case. I'm totally content with no kids, and I am whole. That is good. She says, I'm totally content with no kids and I am whole, which is absolutely awesome. And if more people could get to that place, if more people could get to that place regarding whatever they're experiencing in life, whether it's no kids or whether it's something that they're dealing with. I know we very public about my son has Crohn's disease, which is an intestinal disease, and they said um, it's not curable. It's not terminal, but it's not curable, right? And so it's just treatable. And it's like, man, why me? Well, I got to bear this burden, right? At the age of 13, that I got this thing that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, right? And whether it's that or whatever hand you've been dealt, is getting to a place of acceptance. They say when you go through the 5 stages of grief, a lot of times it's denial, right? And this can be for anything. It's not just somebody dying or if you receive news that you're dying, but it's anything really. And they say it's denial, it's anger, it's depression or bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then you get to a point of acceptance, right? Just accepting that this is my lot in life and navigating through. And you get to that place, right? That's the place, because a lot of people they stuck in denial. A lot of people they stay in anger for so long because of whatever the loss, change, or transition is, no kids or Crohn's disease, whatever the case may be, the anger. Some people get stuck in depression. So they're so depressed that, then some people, they try to bargain. Well, God, if I just would have did this, if I just would have did that, some people try to bargain. But when you get to that place of acceptance, right? When you get to the place of acceptance, like, this is the reality of my life and this is not going to change, right? How do I live with it? Like Paul with that thorn in his flesh. How do I live with this, right? Because God says, my grace is sufficient. He prayed 3 times, God, take this away from me. And there are things in life, y'all, that sometimes we want them removed, but God will let them remain. What do you do when you want something removed, but God says, no, I'm going to allow it to remain, right? What do? You get to the place of acceptance and understand His grace is sufficient. That if this is my lot in life, His grace is sufficient. That if this is what I got to go through, if this is the essence of my life, I know and understand that God's grace is sufficient, that He's going to see me through. I just read and I see this all the time. I see this little quote all the time, and every time I see it, I always got to copy it and repost it because it just blesses me so much. And it's a quote that says, sometimes you have to let go of the picture of what you thought it would be like and learn to find joy in the story you are actually living. Sometimes you have to let go of the picture of what you thought it would be like and learn to find joy in the story you are actually living. I'm going to say it again. Sometimes you have to let go of the picture of what you thought it would be like. We all have a picture of what we thought it would be like. We all have a picture of this life or our situation or our circumstance. We all have a picture of what we thought it would be like. Being able to do certain things, right? Being able to be burden free, being able to do this, that, and the other. And it doesn't always pan out that way. And that's when we end up denial or anger or depression, right? And so sometimes we have to let go of the picture of what we thought it would be like and learn to find joy in the story you are actually living. Learning to find joy in the story you are actually living. Can you find joy in the story that you are actually living? That I know you thought your child would be with you forever and they were taken away at a young age, right? And I know that the picture of what you had in mind, right, was that they was going to bury you. You was going to see them graduate and get married and all this stuff. Yeah, you got to go through the process of grieving, and you got to feel, reveal, and heal so that you can find joy in the story you live in. And whether it's Pilar's situation, who she says she's perfectly fine, right? Some people, I want to grow up, I want to get married, I want to have kids, right? I want to have a picket fence and a dog named Toto. And it's like, well, I can't have kids. Can you still find joy in the story that you're actually living? Or my son's case, you get diagnosed with Crohn's disease at 12 years old. And y'all, it's not terminal, but it's not curable. It is treatable. And now you got to deal with this, this intestinal disease, right? Can you still find joy in the story that you're living, right? You thought you was gonna make it to the league, and you didn't make it to the league, and now you're a school teacher at the place where you once were, right? And it's still admirable, it's still good. It's not the picture you had in mind, but can you still find joy in the story that you live in, right? If you believe all things work together for the good of them that love God, if you can trust in him with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, but acknowledge him and let him direct your path, if you can put your focus on God, if you can let go of what you had in mind and find joy in the story that you are living, then you will be able to live this life and navigate through this thing in a way that you will still be able to find happiness and joy, right? Navigate through that season of mourning and go through what you got to go through. I love it. I'm totally content. Krista says, let me see. I'm confused because I thought I was at acceptance, but then I go back to being angry, then denial, then acceptance. It's been 7 years since I lost my son. Sometimes I feel like going backwards. Yep. Kristen, what happens is, especially with something like that, is so, and grief is not linear, right? So there is no straight line. We find ourselves navigating through those different emotions, right? And there's a part of you have accepted it, like a part of you, like, this is the reality of my life. But sometimes even the reality of your life you can still get angry about stuff, or you can still find yourself slipping into a little depression, like, dang, especially as you navigate through life, with Dijon leaving at 17, um, 17, 18, you get to those milestones. Oh, he would have been 21. Oh, he would have been 25. Oh, he would have been graduating. All this would have been happening. And so a lot of times that just takes you back, right? It pulls you back in to the situation of the circumstance, right? And so it's not linear. It's not linear. It's not a straight line. It's not A, B, C, D, right? But you feel a myriad of emotions. And that's why it's important to continue. That's why they call it a grief journey, right? It's not just a 6 week thing. It's not, now this is a journey you on for the duration of your life. So that's why you build your team. So as you navigate through this journey, you have those times and those opportunities where you find safe places and safe spaces where you feel, reveal, heal, right? Where you go through those seasons where you can articulate how you're feeling in this season on your journey, right? It's a grief journey, right? It's not something that you just go through for a season. It's something you're going to go through for the rest of your life. And so it's something that you got to continue to navigate through and feel. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm good, I'm straight, so I don't need to see nobody, or I'm good. And it's like, you don't wait till you get sick to go to the doctor. You got checkups. You got annual checkup, biannual checkup. Yep, I'm going. Yep, test my blood, check my weight. Yep, take my urine. Yep, check my heart, check all of this stuff. Right. So you do checkups because it's a health journey, right? Same thing with grief. You continue in there, all your blood elevated, all your A1Cs or whatever they be saying, oh, we got to check this. Oh, yep, seen something in your blood. We're gonna send that off. Oh, it's the same thing, right? So you navigate through this journey in a way that will help you to remain aware, right? And that'll help you to continue to heal, especially when certain things come up. Man, I appreciate y'all. I got to run YouTube to get y'all comments. If y'all commenting on Facebook, I'm sorry, I can't, I can't get them. She says, Michael, I understand where you're coming from with feeling guilt for being blessed. So many people make weird comments about me being blessed by not having kids because I have been able to focus on my career and do many other things that have blessed me and my family. Yeah, sometimes people don't know they make comment, like you said, weird comments, like you take that as being blessed, like, okay. You know what I mean? All right, people, yeah, people are weird. A lot of times people don't know what to say, or they say things that are just wrong or just off because they don't think. A lot of people say stuff without thinking. Almost 12 years divorce. I've been divorced and single for almost 11 years. It took at least half of that time for me to become content. Yep, absolutely. I think that I grieve losing myself the most. Yeah, you can grieve losing yourself as you navigate through grief. I always say choose you before you lose you. That's a part of it too, right? And I tell people all the time, you can't do nothing about the time you lost, but you're going to do with the time you have left, right? So even in seasons where you lost yourself, you get to a position where you grieve and you start to find yourself again, right? And you still got so much more life to live, right? That's why it's important to do the work so that you can improve the quality of life that you have left to live. Some good stuff, man. Good conversations today. We're going to get these comments fixed. I don't know why it's tripping and not coming through my thread. I got to run to YouTube to get it, but this is good, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Look, this is what it's all about. And we're building and making connections across this country, across this nation, and even here locally. And we're going to continue to do the work. We're going to continue to show up daily here at 8 a.m. every single day, y'all. Just want to be a part of your journey. And so continue to show up as we navigate through your journey. We're going to have some other things in place throughout this year, in person and virtual, that's going to help you be a better version of you. And so I'm thankful for each and every one of you and excited about what God is about to do. Look, I love y'all with the love of the Lord. I hope and pray you have a wonderful Wednesday. This is some great dialogue. Let's keep it going. I hope y'all making connections with each other as well so that y'all can connect even outside of this devotion so that we can develop this fellowship in this community so that we can continue to mourn meaningfully and collectively. I love y'all with the love of the Lord. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We out. Let's go.